Hi guys, I wanted to talk about a movie that has a little backstory to it for me. I first watched this movie about 5 years ago, I think. It was on a list that I made of horror movies that I wanted to watch that I had never watched before. And I got a whole bunch of movies from the library. I borrowed a whole bunch. And this movie in particular came as a triple feature. It hadn't really been on my list, but when I was looking at the selection menu where you choose the three movies, I was like, oh, Horror Hotel, that must have been the one that was on my list. I clicked it, I watched it, loved it. Loved it. Then I found out that wasn't even the one on the list, so I almost would have missed this movie. And now, it was called Horror Hotel on this triple feature, and I watched it, loved it. I think I watched it twice before I returned it to the library, and then I re-borrowed it last year, I think it was, same copy, and it just had been destroyed. With Skip, it would freeze. The quality was just shitty. It just looked bad. I couldn't even get through the movie. So I ended up buying it on Blu-ray, which is why I won't be able to show you any clips. I didn't realize that it had another name. So it's also called City of the Dead. And I prefer Horror Hotel, but I could see where City of the Dead is acceptable. Let me show you the Blu-ray, which the movie itself looks gorgeous. The transfer, stunning, the black and white imagery, perfection. So this is not anything against the actual movie, but this is what they chose. Now remember, let me tell you, this is a movie about witches and witchcraft, and this is what you get. So, does this not look like a zombie movie? And then, on the back, you've got the black and white. You've got the black and white stuff. I don't know. So this is kind of why I didn't think this was the right movie. I knew that Christopher Lee was in it, but Christopher Lee is in a zillion things, so I wasn't sure, so I had to do some research before I actually bought it. It is the correct one. Love it. Great transfer. Sound was amazing. Everything was good about this. So let's talk about the actual movie now. It is crisp black and white. The casting was superb for Nan Barlow. She's the main girl, and I found out that she was married to Don Everly, and I just thought that was really cool. Christopher Lee's also in it. They are the two standouts for me. The other actors are fine. So it starts with the burning of a witch at the stake in 1692 in this town of Whitewood, and her name is Elizabeth Selwyn. She is burned at the stake because she's a witch. She makes a pact with Lucifer, and her accomplice in this is a guy named Jethro, and he denies that he knows her. He tells the townspeople when they ask him, you know, don't have any connection to this bitch. No, don't know her. So, you know, to save his own skin. And something must have happened. He must have gotten burned later, because now, in the present, they are back. And Elizabeth Selwyn's character, the name that she takes on is Ms. Newless. Christopher Lee, love him. He's such a good actor. I could listen to him talk for hours. In fact, I recently just watched an interview with him, not because I really cared about what they were talking about, I just like hearing his voice. And I have to check out his metal music. I've heard that he actually sings heavy metal. So, there's that. I haven't looked into that yet. Great actor. I love his role in this. He's so smoldering in it. I just love it. And he is a professor. He is teaching Nan Barlow, the main character. She is going to go write her term paper on witchcraft in New England cities. So she is going to Whitewood to check out, you know, this stuff. Unbeknownst to her, Christopher Lee's character, Professor Driscoll, he is from Whitewood. So he is a descendant, and he is actually a practicing witch, which she doesn't know. So she goes off on her own. Her brother and her fiance are kind of, like, teasing her about it. You know, they don't really understand her fascination, and they let her go off alone. She's supposed to rendezvous back with them at some party, and that's how they left it. She was going to be gone for a couple weeks. She would meet back up with them. So she's staying at the Ravens Inn with Ms. Newless as the hosting person at the hotel. She gets there, and it's so creepy. There's fog everywhere. There's a cemetery just across the way from the inn, and it's run down, really old, leaning gravestones, stuff like that, and it's just so spooky. The ambiance is great. There's a rundown church, so there's all this stone and wood and fog and just kind of odd people walking around looking at her like she's the one who's weird. And she goes to a bookstore. She meets a woman who is the granddaughter of the priest in the city, and she is a recent transplant. After her grandmother died, she came to help take care of her grandfather. So she has a book on witchcraft that she lends to Nan, and they have like a little friendship that starts. Nan is doing her research, and she tells Miss Newless about this ritual for Candlemas Eve. And she says that a girl is chosen to be sacrificed. They take something of value from her and leave in its stead a bird that is dead. And then they put up some kind of a plant on the door. It wasn't ivy. I don't remember what it was. So she's telling Ms. Newless all this, and she says that, you know, the clock strikes 13 and then they sacrifice the girl. And Ms. Newless is like, I don't know of any clock that strikes more than 12. Cricket, quiet. Oh, and also, on the way, Nan picks up a hitchhiker who's just standing there, who happens to be that Jethro guy. And he is in the dark, in the fog, standing at the crossroads to where she has to turn to Whitewood. And she picks him up, and she's just chatting along with him. She's fine with it. Very bizarre. Later on, he gets picked up again by the daughter of the Reverend, and she's a little more hesitant and kind of wants him out of the car. And once they both take him into town, he disappears. He vanishes from the car, which is a little odd. Lottie is a kind of maid in the hotel, and she is mute, but she tries to warn Nan to get out of there because of the witches. And every time she tries to warn Nan, Ms. Newless finds out and puts an end to it. And you're hoping that Lottie will actually go through with the warning, but she never does. And so Nan has given all these things that are supposed to happen, and then they start happening to her. She finds a dead bird. She's missing a rare piece of jewelry. She looks at the door and she's got the wreath of laurel or heather or whatever it is tacked to her door. It's very bizarre. There's a cellar under her rug in her room, and it leads, what she thinks is, to the cellar. And she hears chanting down there, which is really ominous and spooky, but melodic at the same time. It's really good chanting. I find it very creepy. It's kind of different from The Omen, which I also like. And the cellar is just cobwebby and old, and it looks like real cobwebs. It doesn't look like staged anything. The set design is really good in this movie. So she goes down to the cellar, the witches grab her, they sacrifice her, and Ms. Newless, of course, is the head witch, because she is Elizabeth Selwyn come back to life. And she puts a dagger right in Nan, but you don't see it. It cuts to a birthday cake, the party that Nan was supposed to go to. Someone stabs a cake at the same time. It's just a really good cut. Cut. Sorry, I am so tired yet caffeinated. Nan disappears. Pat, the granddaughter of the Reverend, she comes to get her book back, and Ms. Newless kind of makes it sound like Nan just skipped town and she was irresponsible, and Pat's like, well, I thought she was a good girl. I wouldn't have lent my expensive book to her if I had known that. And Lottie hands the piece of jewelry that was taken from Nan to Pat, without Miss Newell seeing. So then Pat decides that something has gone wrong because this expensive piece of jewelry that she remarked upon wouldn't have just been left behind. So she ends up going to check out Professor Driscoll and find out his role in this, and she wants to get in touch with Nan's brother and fiance to let them know that something is amiss. So they've tried calling the cops, there's no information about Nan, she's just gone. So the brother goes out to help see what he can do to investigate. The fiance follows unbeknownst to the brother, so there's this really awesome jazz music playing as they go through the fog banks, and they're both trying to turn into the Whitewood area, and Nan had asked a gas attendant how to get there, and he says not many people pass that way, they don't go to Whitewood. And so then he's got two more people who come through, the brother and then after that the fiance, and it's just a little levity, and I like that. So they go. The fiance has a car accident, crashes, and car catches on fire, and he escapes. And so the brother is there longer before the fiance catches up. Reverend and Pat meet with the brother, and they are talking about how the dead come to life during certain times of the year in this town. And it's the Candlemas Eve, and it's also Witches' Sabbath. So this second night, they have to sacrifice a second girl. Well, this time it ends up being Pat, so it goes through the whole thing again. She finds a dead bird, there's the foliage attached to the door, and her grandfather's like, we have to get out of here, this is bad, you've been marked. Well, he's blind and helpless, and they take her. So the hooded witches end up taking her to the Raven's Inn, where they're going to sacrifice her in the same spot where they sacrificed Nan, in the cellar. Nan's brother heads down. I don't remember his name. He heads down, he finds the dead body of Lottie, because she was strangled, because she was getting too involved in things, and he thwarts their stabbing. And so then the whole coven moves outside to the cemetery, and they're gonna sacrifice her out there on the strike when the clock strikes 13. The fiance stumbles in. The brother says, you know, if you hold the cross up and get them in the shadow, the witches will die. That's what the Reverend told me. So the fiance is trying to lift this heavy cross and, you know, try and burn the witches. And at the same time, they've thrown a dagger into his back, and he is just struggling. He is having a really hard day. But he pulls it up. He just raises it, and they just kind of burst into flame. Pretty easy. Kind of like when Buffy just dusts a vampire. It's, you know, not much effort on your part. And so he dispatches the witches that way. And it does have a happy ending. Pat and the brother go back to the Raven's Inn, and Miss Newell is sitting there underneath the plaque that says this is where Elizabeth Selwyn was burned at the stake for being a witch. And she is there in her robe, and she's charred. She's just, you could tell it's her, so she's not completely charred, but she's just charred. And it's really cool. The pact with Lucifer must have ended, and we're led to believe that that's that. So, all in all, I love this movie. I love this movie so much. I love the music. I love the cinematography. I enjoy just the, like, almost Nancy Drew-esque quality to it. The innocence, the, you know, girl investigating this witchcraft stuff. So, if you've watched it, let me know what you think. Is it something you want to watch? Make sure if you do that you check for it both under Horror Hotel and City of the Dead, because apparently it can be either one. I highly recommend buying the Blu-ray. It's not very expensive, and it's just so good. The rewatchability factor is very high for this one. Have a spooky day.